Mr. Anderson is in paternity court with one prayer only. He hopes he isn't the father. Ms. Lima, the plaintiff, says Mr. Anderson is the father of her baby, Christina, and hopes the test today will make him acknowledge Christina as his baby and build a relationship with her. Their messy situation began like this.
Your Honor, it all started from a Facebook message when Mr. Anderson was messaging me on Facebook. So we started being friends online for about a year and a half. Then out of the blue one day, he called me and said, let's go out for dinner. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything, so why not? We went out to dinner and we got a hotel room that night. We had sex.
Your Honor, just one moment, ma'am.
He, we was planning a trip to go on a trip.
Ms. Lima says she never knew that Mr. Anderson was married and treated him the way she would a normal boyfriend she was going out with. Incredibly, Mr. Anderson doesn't deny any of this at all.
I'm just sorry, Your Honor. I just want to say I'm sorry to my wife and my family and my kids.
I believe you are sorry.
Your Honor, it was a big mistake. And, I really want my marriage and I want my marriage to work. But
and
it started.
I see your wife next to you and I feel her pain.
Me and my wife, we had a bad, argument and I decided to go out.
Well, if it had only happened that night, Mr. Anderson wouldn't be in court with his wife today. Incredibly, Mr. Anderson says this is exactly what happened. He says it was just one night, and then she texted him months later that she was having his baby.
How often would you see Mr. Anderson?
We've seen each other for 2 years, every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays.
Was it strange to you that you only saw him on Saturdays and Sundays, or you thought he was working during the week?
Not really, because I went to his house numerous of times, but
wait, excuse me. You went to his house numerous times?
Yes, I went to his house numerous of times, and I told her what was in her house, and I described it to her.
My God. Hold on.
Yeah, it looks like Mr. Anderson is going to be telling a lot of lies in court today. A few moments earlier, he was talking about how he had never seen Ms. Lima since that one time, and now he's taking her into his house? Really? That's low. Anyway, Mr. Anderson says Ms. Lima is just looking for a cash out from him.
Oh, hold on. Let me understand this. So you did sleep with another man during the window of conception during that time?
Correct.
And you were sleeping with both men without protection?
Correct.
So how did you finally get in touch with him?
Well, I got in touch with him later, we met up and we had sex again when I was around 4 months pregnant.
Okay.
No, Your Honor, that didn't happen. She disappeared. I haven't heard from her in months.
Of course, he met up with her. Anyway, let's see what Mrs. Anderson has to say about all of this.
The whole world it caved in. Are you serious? This
because
is my
you all have
husband.
built a lot together.
A business. We've been through a lot, Your Honor. And just to
And
hear,
children?
5. Come on,
At what point did you hear there was potentially a baby?
She told me it was a baby. I asked him. Clearly he lied to me.
That's right, Mrs. Anderson, and this already threatens to rip her marriage apart. She doesn't want to continue with the marriage.
Fine, because
My
of
marriage
this.
is past on the line. I can't. And then he's sitting up here. First he said it's one time, now it's numerous of times. You understand? I knew it when she told me what was in my house, that it was numerous of times. And he kept lying. It hurts really, really bad. It hurts really, really, really. No.
The only thing that has even a tiny chance of fixing this is finding out that Mr. Anderson isn't the real father of this baby. It belongs to another man named Mr. Scott. Of course, Scott is also in court today for his DNA test results. So, let's see what the DNA results say about that.
Mr. Scott, you are not her father.
Wow. If Mr. Scott isn't the father, then Mr. Anderson must be, except there's something Ms. Lima isn't telling us. There's only one way to find out.
Mr. Anderson, you are not her father.
There can't be.
Oh my God.
Plaintiffs lie, defendants lie, DNA does not lie. I could see the relief you felt. I felt the relief as well.
This was a paternity case like no other. With so much regret, Mr. Patrick appeared in court, claiming that a stranger whom he welcomed into his home out of the kindness of his heart ended up sleeping with his girlfriend. He now believes he is not the father of her twins. He opened his case by saying,
Mr. Patrick, you say 5 years ago you made a huge mistake by opening your doors to a stranger who needed a place to stay because that man betrayed you and slept with your girlfriend, Ms. Pence. Pence's fraternal twins.
We had wanted to purchase another home. We met the gentleman We befriended him, let him move into our home. He offered to help pay the bills and stuff.
Mr. Patrick must have been a really welcoming man. The question ringing in everyone's head was about how a stranger he welcomed into his home ended up kicking it in bed with his girlfriend. In his story, he claimed that one evening the defendant, Ms. Pence, disappeared overnight.
Goes on, me and her sat around and had a few drinks, sitting at home enjoying ourselves. And she up and leaves and goes across the street to the neighbors. 10:30 runs around, no Miss Pence. 2, 3 o'clock comes around in the morning, still no Miss Pence. Well, she doesn't show up until the next day, about 10:30 in the morning.
Really?
And her hair's a wreck. You know, it looked like she went through a hurricane or something.
She sneaked out to sleep with the stranger? Now, that's something you don't see every day. In trying to defend herself, she claimed that Mr. Patrick always accused her of sleeping with people, even though she knew for a fact that she hadn't slept with anyone.
I had never slept with anyone else before that night. I had constantly.
You're so flirtatious.
That's how I was brought up. I'm constantly calling people honey and babe.
What did I tell you?
I'm from the South. That's how I was raised. It has nothing to do with that. I never slept with anyone before that. Never. Constantly accused me of it, and I kept telling you, you're going to keep pushing, and it's going to happen.
Mr. Patrick might be on to something there. Maybe the sexual tension was getting too much for them to handle. Anyway, Ms. Penny was not going to deny that what she did was wrong, but she claimed that deep down in her heart, she wanted to make things right.
It seemed like you went out looking for him.
There was no specific reason as to why that guy. It was just someone at the time that was around, and it happened.
So in other words,
But he wasn't around. He had left the house.
He had, Your Honor. I was with my neighbor, like I had stated earlier. Me and her had went out. I did kind of look for him, I guess you could say a little. Me and him got together that night. We ended up having...
I mean, can she really blame him for thinking she's always cheating after what she did? She better cut him some slack. Judge Lauren then went on to ask her when she found out she was pregnant. Ms. Pence explained to the judge when she conceived her baby using this exhibit.
And then on August 7th is the date that the twins were born.
That don't mean that. That's a 5-day window.
It does. The doctor had said that the twins were conceived right around the 2nd of November, Your Honor. The twins were born almost completely full term. And if you count those dates back, it only leads to Mr. Patrick. There's
Mr.
no way
Patrick,
possible.
do you agree with those dates? They seem to add up.
No, Your Honor, I don't. I mean, it's a...
Oh, she thought she was smart. Was she trying to hide the date she slept with the stranger from the judge? Oh well. Aside from the fact that she cheated on him, Mr. Patrick told the judge that he had other reasons that made him doubt he was not the father of the child.
What are those doubts?
I think he's ADHD or something like that. You know what I mean? He doesn't listen. He's rambunctious.
He's a little boy.
I understand
Mr.
he's a
Patrick.
little boy, and I hope he grows out of it someday, but I believe he's ADHD or
There's
something.
nothing wrong with
autistic.
And so...
Doesn't run in my family.
How do you
doesn't
know
run
that?
In her family.
How do you know that it doesn't
Well,
run
I've
in your
been
family?
with you for 10 years, honey.
It doesn't matter. You don't know every single thing about your family history.
I'm not going to fault Judge Lauren for asking a doctor to come to the courtroom. Mr. Patrick, for some reason, felt that one of the twins had a disorder that made him feel the child was not his. This was what the doctor had to say.
Point to one gene, sometimes it's multiple genes, and sometimes it's the way that the genes interact with the environment, and sometimes the genes have nothing to do with it, and it's just something that happened during the pregnancy or during the delivery or in that child's early childhood that can affect how they learn.
That's interesting because you're saying the gene could be a factor, but there's also the gene plus the environment component.
Right. And sometimes it's just the environment, like with lead poisoning, for example.
From the doctor's explanation, it looks like Mr. Patrick might be wrong to claim that he is the father of just one of the twins. But one thing was certain. His doubts were affecting his relationship with Ms. Penny on a major level.
We've always had arguments over stuff.
Yes, but Your Honor,
Just
we
after all this
haven't even been had sex in probably the past 4 months. It's just a constant argument from the time that I get up until the time that I go to bed. Pretty much, it's constant argument
Concerning paternity issues?
Paternity and the one night stand and him saying that it happened more than the one time, Your Honor.
And so that's why, Mr. Patrick, you asked this court.
You heard Mr. Patrick. If it happens that he isn't the father of the twins, he is dumping Ms. Pence's ass and leaving her with the kids. After so much talking had been done, Judge Lauren felt it was time to reveal the results of the lie detector test. This was how it played out.
Your Honor.
You were asked the following questions. During the last 10 years of your relationship with Mr. Patrick, have you had sexual contact with any other man other than the man whom you admitted to cheating with?
Yes, Your Honor.
You said no. The lie detector determined you were being deceptive.
How is that?
Ms. Pence, you were asked, did you have sexual intercourse with the man?
Oh wow, Ms. Penny had more skeletons in her cupboard than she was willing to tell the courtroom. After hearing those results, Judge Lauren felt it was time to reveal the DNA results.
Mr. Patrick, you are the father.
I told you that you was the father. I told you.
Are you relieved, Mr. Patrick?
Oh, very much so. No, the deception stuff with the lie detector test, that's something that's going to have to be worked on, because that just right there shows me I may not be able to trust her again.
And see if anything Ms. Pence said was true at all. This was her verdict. Imagine being an amazing father to your little girl throughout her life for 3 years and having a woman take that away from you simply because she hates you. This was Scotty Rasmussen's thought before paternity court. The court case began like this.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say you've been there for your daughter her entire life, and you're here today to prove you are Zaylee's father.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Rasmussen, why is Ms. Miller saying you're not Zaylee's father?
Your Honor, I believe it's just out of pure hatred. She just doesn't want me to have visitation. I drive 160 miles every other weekend just to pick up my daughter and drop her off.
What an interesting opening to the case. Mr. Rasmussen admitted that he cheated on Ms. Miller at the end of their relationship when things got rocked. Ms. Miller insisted that he cheated on her throughout the entire duration of their relationship. One could imagine that this is where the hate spoken of comes from.
Is it enough to buy her clothes so she doesn't have to wear cut-off sweatpants and the same t-shirt every time I pick her up?
I do that because I don't want...
Is it enough money to buy her underwear so you don't got to keep putting her in diapers at 4
I
years
have
old?
underwear for her, and she is not in diapers. She is in pull-ups. She is in training right now. She is having problems.
She is.
But what he's saying, Miss Miller, is...
Well, that went south for Ms. Miller pretty fast. She goes on to insist that she does not exactly hate Mr. Rasmussen, but she wants him away from her daughter because she knows that she is not his. She goes on to explain further to the court.
You were intimate with someone else, and you believe that you were intimate with that other person during the time Zaylee was conceived, and Mr. Rasmussen was all the way in Las Vegas.
Yes, Your Honor.
But clearly, at some point, Mr. Rasmussen either thought or was informed that he was her biological father because he is paying child support. He's still driving 160 miles each way.
All of this points to the fact that Mr. Rasmussen is her biological father, or at least on a normal day in a place that is not paternity court, it does. His name is on the birth certificate too. Apparently, Ms. Miller only brought up the notion that he may not be Zaylee's biological father. Now here's what she had to say about the other possible father.
Not even quite sure. After we broke up, he changed his number, he moved, he pretty much disappeared. I have tried to find him, I have tried to get a hold of him, and I can't find him.
But you keep saying, Mr. Rasmussen cheated, he did this, he did that. And as wrong as that may be, you also slept with somebody else.
We weren't even dating then. I was single at that time, because he was with this.
So he basically wants nothing to do with her or even the thought of having a baby. And here she is, so intent on making sure that Mr. Rasmussen is not the biological father. Isn't that just something? Ms. Miller says that she does not feel bad about mentioning that her daughter is not Scotty's after such a long time.
You are insisting that Mr. Rasmussen is not the child's father, and yet you're receiving child support from Mr. Rasmussen. Have you petitioned the court to have Mr. Rasmussen taken off of child support?
I have told him a couple times that if he would just sign her over to me, that he wouldn't have to pay child support anymore.
I'm not going to do that.
Closing in on the results, Mr. Rasmussen states that if Zaylee is truly his, he will be overjoyed, and it would make him a very happy man to know that all of this drama is over. However, if she isn't, he stated that there is no amount of time in the world to prepare him for such a bombshell.
I don't think I'd be able to prepare myself for just how devastating that would be to not only me, but my entire family.
Jerome, I think it's time for the results.
Okay.
These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics, and they read as follows.
After much ado, it's time to hear the verdict. The results are out, and all parties get to hear their fate. This is one of the most dramatic reveals in Judge Lake's court. That's for sure.
Mr. Rasmus, you are not the father. Miss Miller.
I'm sorry.
That's a lot of nerve, considering the alternative is somebody that don't want nothing to do with you or your child.
I'm sorry.
That's a lot of nerve. You just showed me where your priorities were right there.
I'm sorry.
Because I held out hope that you weren't just acting a fool because you so mad at him.
In this situation, Ms. Davis has 4 potential baby daddies, and she doesn't even know their names. One of the potential fathers, Mr. Smith, has now been dragged to court by Ms. Davis to get tested. But Mr. Smith insists that he is not that baby's father. Here is how it all began.
I mean, Your Honor, as a child, I had a very bad childhood. I went through 13 different foster homes. I've been to 4 different group homes, and I didn't grow up knowing who my father was until I was 18 years old. And my son's only 2. I mean, it's not his fault that I decided to make well, practically a hoe of myself.
This is so touching. Ms. Davis knows she has made mistakes in her life, and all she wants to do is correct them. However, Mr. Smith insists that he can never be on the path to correcting those mistakes.
All right, Mr. Smith, I just want to ask you, you did have a relationship with Miss Davis. You acknowledge that, am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so why are you doubtful that you potentially could be Javion's father?
Because she said I wasn't, Your Honor.
She told you you weren't.
Yes. I asked if I could be the father, and she told me no, Your Honor.
Ah, so Ms. Davis was the one who got the ball rolling. Well, she told Mr. Smith he was not the father, so she could not turn around and say he was now the father. That does not make any sense at all. But there are 3 other potential fathers. What is up with them?
I need you to walk me through that.
There are 4 potential fathers, and each of the individual men I actually met on a chat line within days upon each other. I made a calendar.
Okay. Jerome, let me have that evidence, please. Thank you. So this calendar shows that you were intimate with potential father number 1 on the 12th of November.
The calendar showed that Ms. Davis was intimate with 4 men, all in the same month around the time of her conception. She actually slept with Mr. Smith for an entire week and then left him. After that, she hooked up with another man, and then hooked up with a totally random stranger whose name she could not recall.
Potential father number 4, Your Honor.
You don't even remember his name. Do you know where he is?
No, Your Honor.
Having this experience that you voluntarily participated in, you're not feeling too good about yourself.
No, I mean, I know I made mistakes, Your Honor, but I don't consider my son a mistake.
Yeah, that is a good thing. Anyway, when Ms. Davis got pregnant, she tested her boyfriend and then the 3rd guy she slept with. The test told her that they were not her baby's father, which left her with Mr. Smith and the last potential father, whose name she did not know. But Ms. Davis does not even want Mr. Smith to be her child's father.
Honestly, I didn't want Mr. Smith to be my son's father.
Really?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, why?
He's a mama's boy. He still lives at home with his mama. He don't work. He's very immature. He's like a boy himself.
If I'm such a mama's boy, then why she got me here?
Well, I don't think you have much of a choice here, Mr. Smith. She has tested 2 other potential fathers, and since they are not the father, the chances of that father being you is extremely high. However, Mr. Smith has another reason, which is that he isn't this child's father.
But I still feel like he doesn't look like me or favor me whatsoever.
Have you met Javion?
Yes, I only met him once. I felt kind of scared, Your Honor, because I felt like he didn't know me, and I felt like a total stranger.
Your Honor, may I say something, please?
Yes.
Why doesn't he know you? If you've told me yourself, because you said you felt it in your heart that he might be yours, why didn't you step up then?
Yeah, I think we are going to go out on a limb here and say that Mr. Smith really does not have anything. Despite this, Ms. Davis says she is certain that Mr. Smith is the father of her baby, but she doesn't like it.
Very positive that Mr. Smith is the father, and with knowing that he is the father, to be put on my son's birth certificate as listed as his father, because it actually does mean a lot to me.
And what is that?
This is my son's birth certificate.
Jerome, hand me that. Who's on the birth certificate now? And no father listed.
No.
And you know what, Ms. Davis? You could be absolutely correct. Anyway, let's get the DNA test results and see where all of this is going. Will Mr. Smith be the father, or will Ms. Davis have to start searching for some long-lost fellow whose name she does not know?
Mr. Smith, you are not Javion's father.
I'm like so hurt, Your Honor.
You look crushed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, I can see that in your eyes. So we've been through potential fathers 1, 2, and 3. And you said the last guy, number 4, you used protection. Are there more? There's no easy way to ask that question.
After a 6-year relationship between Thomas and Nelson that birthed 5 beautiful kids, Nelson is in doubt about the true paternity of their 5th child, Jakai. When asked why she thinks Nelson was denying her son, Miss Thomas claimed that it is probably because Nelson recently got married to another woman.
The only thing that I can think of is because he recently got married.
Is that true, Mr. Nelson?
No, it's not, John. It was good in the beginning when we first started having children. And then after that, it's like me and her started like both doing our own little thing. And we was already about to split, but she ended up getting pregnant. But at that time, she was already messing around with other guys.
So, Nelson believes that Thomas's son belongs to one of the numerous men with whom she had sexual relationships, despite her claiming that it is not true. How did these two even get here? throwing infidelity accusations at each other. I mean, according to Thomas, they used to be extremely happy together and in love with each other.
Our relationship, it was good. That was my best friend. We did everything together.
Take your time. I know it's hard. You have...
Yana, we was both young at the time, and we was both new to the whole parent thing. After that, we started getting, we done got older and grew, and it's like we grew apart away from each other. And I still, even while I'm married, I still be trying to keep a good relationship with her to talk and stuff like that. It don't have to be, we just know we can't be together.
Hearing that story would make you think that these two were so deep in love that they would weather through any storm together. However, it turns out that they both cheated on each other. First, it was Nelson. Next, it was Thomas. And by the time Nelson found out that Thomas was cheating on him, things turned sour immediately.
So wait a minute, you had 4 children together and then you find out Miss Thomas is with another guy?
Yes, that's
How did you find that out?
The dude picture was popping up on her phone.
It didn't start like that. He decided to leave because at that time we did grow apart.
What is this? Why then do you start having other men popping up on your phone?
It wasn't men, it was that one man.
This is just sad. After 5 years together and 4 children, this is how they decided to ruin their relationship. When the relationship between Thomas and Nelson began to crash, the latter observed that Thomas was having pregnancy symptoms. However, when they did a test, the result came out negative.
And Your Honor, that same day he said that, we walked to the store and I took 2 pregnancy tests in front of him and then they ended up negative. So I was not pregnant. I also had an app on my phone tracking my periods when I'm ovulating, and I have it right here.
In October, it looks like around the 28th is when your cycle begins.
Yes, Your Honor.
At this point, things are still not clear on where Thomas's sexual relationship with the other man comes in to prove that he is truly a potential baby daddy. According to Thomas's cycle calendar, all fingers are pointing toward Nelson, but he claims that he doesn't even remember being intimate with Thomas on the day she claims it happened.
Do you remember those dates, Mr. Nelson?
No, I do not, Jan. When I got back from North Carolina, I had went through her phone. She was like, every time I had sex with him, and this is after you left, I started having sex with this guy.
So wait a minute, how did you find out about the other guy exactly, Mr. Nelson?
I told him.
She honest, I'm not gonna lie, she do be honest.
I told him.
So what did you say? You just came to him and said, I have something to tell you?
We weren't having sex. We was never having sex no more.
We weren't.
2 months go by, 3, I'm like,
damn! But all of that is not even the crazy part. It turns out that the woman Nelson is now married to, Mrs. Courtney Nelson, is the same person he was cheating on Thomas with back when they were still together. What's worse is that despite the fact that Nelson is now married to Courtney, he is still messing around with Thomas. Here, take a look at their messy situation.
Mind you, he was cheating on me with her. I didn't know about her until I found out she was calling him through Facebook. And he was trying to lie then because we were still messing around even when he was with her.
I wish I had the old phone. I could show you.
I have text messages also that we still mess around still to this day.
In the end, the poor woman got dragged into their mess. All along, Courtney had thought in her head that she was so lucky to have been married to such a fantastic man. Unknown to her, he was still messing around with his ex, who, by the way, has 4 children for him. As per the judge's request, Courtney narrated how she found out about her husband's infidelity.
It's a video I found. The video is dated April 3rd, which would have been, I guess, the first day or so that she had showed up in Greensboro. All I know is I saw her demeanor when she came around, and she was kind of like high-stepping. I'm like, okay, this is a person that's supposedly supposed to be so hurt. Like, why is she grinning? And then I saw his demeanor, and he looked guilty. So I put 2 and 2 together.
Clearly, this man has successfully played these women, thinking that he can have both of them to himself. But neither Thomas nor Courtney realizes what a fool Nelson has made of them. Thomas firmly believes that Nelson will come back to her and her kids, while Courtney believes that what happened was a one-time thing. These two even start arguing over this same man who has hurt them deeply.
Comfortable from going from wifey to side chick.
No, I'm not nobody's side chick because your husband is the one that tells me he wants to leave.
But that makes you a side chick.
No,
that
it
makes
doesn't.
you a side chick.
No, it does not.
Wait a minute.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
Listen.
He told me he married you out of spite.
I did.
Let's get some order. Let's get some order.
Now, would you look at that? 2 grown-ass women with misplaced priorities. Seeing how much this irritates me, you can imagine how annoyed Judge Lauren was after seeing these 2 women behave in such a shameless manner.
He's sleeping with both of y'all, okay? So, look, let's clear the air. Neither one of you are on a step higher than the other. Because you may not be his wife, but that's the mother of all his children and maybe another one. You all both look miserable. I can see the look on your face, Mr. Nelson. You decided in your mind that it's possible for you to have both of these women.
That just had to be said. It may allow Thomas, and especially Courtney, to see what Nelson is really doing to both of them. But all of this is not even over yet. As the episode continues, Nelson's deception is revealed every second. He claims that he and his wife, Courtney, have moved past his infidelity and are happy together. But is that really the truth? Let's find out.
What are you hoping for now? What do you want out of this?
I want him to leave me alone. Honest. If he's gonna make his marriage work, let your marriage work. I'll try to move forward with my life. He texts me. He calls me and tells me how much he misses me and wants to be with me. It's not the other way around. And I have messages.
Your Honor, all right.
And if he wants to be with me—
Did you bring the messages to court with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Just look at that. Of course, hearing this shattered Courtney completely because she thought her husband was done with Thomas for good. But it turned out that neither of the women had learned their lesson because they broke into another heated word exchange. This time, Judge Lauren could not hold it together anymore as she blasted their heads with some profound truths.
I don't feel no way. Honestly, I don't feel no type of way.
Yes, you do.
If you're gonna make your marriage work,
Stop. And there's no sense in standing here when the woman's just trying to acknowledge that both of you are in an emotional battle over a man who's taking advantage of both of you, and then you sit up and say you don't feel some kind of way.
This man has really done these women dirty. Between these two women, emotions have been flying everywhere. Words have been thrown, and yet Nelson stands between them unaffected. That should tell them a lot. Anyways, the primary purpose of the court session is to find out if Nelson is Jakai's biological father. Let's see how that goes.
Mr. Nelson, you are the father. It's number 5.
I met him and he already had, 4 kids with her. So what's one more?
I'll tell you what one more is. One more means this isn't over. This child deserves to know his father. His father's gonna have to come visit him.
Next up, we have a more complicated situation between one woman and 3 of her sexual partners. Virginia Hatcher tells the court that at the time she believes her son, Josiah, was conceived, she was having sexual relations with these 3 men: Edward Scott, Derek Blake, and James Sneed. Wow, that's a lot. But how did Hatcher get herself into such a situation?
At the time, I had sex with 3 different men around the same time my son conceived. I did have a 5.5-month fling with Mr. Scott, and I also had...
No, Your Honor, that is not true. It was just sex, period.
That's what a fling is!
Not to me, not to me.
So please, keep going, Miss Hatcher.
Interesting. Now, on Hatcher's calendar, she highlighted the days in which she had sexual intimacy with each of the men. While giving a breakdown of the sexual encounter with Sneed to the judge, Scott made a rude interjection. Take a look.
One time.
Did you use protection?
No, we did not.
How much did he pay?
Excuse me, Mr. Scott? You're gonna be respectful in this courtroom.
Your Honor, this is him. He is a disrespectful man. He is very ignorant. He's all that to me and my son. Just recently, he knows that we don't have a working refrigerator and a stove.
Hatcher now knows that she made a huge mistake being with Scott for that long. Moving on, Judge Lauren asks Scott why he is in doubt. He tells the court that he was not always in doubt, as he was present during the baby's birth and even signed the birth certificate. He also adds that he has always been providing for Josiah, a statement that Hatcher is quick to correct.
I've been buying diapers, I've been buying playpens, I've been taking care of the side, letting him come to my house on football Sundays.
Your Honor, that man is not doing... Your Honor, that man is not doing any of that, okay?
I'm not doing it anymore. Ever since I found out that I don't think he's mine, I have stopped.
He is an ignorant person.
That young man has my last name, Your Honor, and it could be not.
As you have seen, Hatcher disagreed with Scott's testimony, claiming that his narration of how he found out that Josiah may not be his is totally wrong. So, in her testimony, she explained to the court her version of how she revealed to Scott that Josiah may not be his. Watch this.
I added up the dates and everything. I thought I conceived in January. To find out I didn't conceive in January, I conceived in December. So then I was like, oh man, I came to him like a woman and I said, you know what, Josiah might not be yours.
Why didn't you just win?
Josiah might not,
When?
Josiah might not be yours.
When did you do that?
Chaos. Chaos everywhere. Meanwhile, Blake, the second possible baby daddy, doubts that he is Josiah's father because what happened between him and Hatcher happened once. Again, Hatcher disagrees with the second man's testimony.
All right, so Ms. Hatcher, do you remember whether or not you two used protection when you...
Yes, I do. Well, first time we did use protection, and then the second time we didn't.
Your Honor, it wasn't no second time.
We had sex twice.
I only remember one time. I know I wasn't that drunk, Your Honor.
Now, why are you doubtful?
Great! Apart from the fact that Hatcher and Blake had a sexual encounter during her window of conception, Hatcher listed Blake as the second possibility because she sees similar physical structures between Josiah and Mr. Blake. So, now it is time to assess why Hatcher thinks that her baby daddy could also be Mr. Sneed.
You have good reason to believe that Mr. Sneed is the father. You see similarities there.
Yes, I do. In his feet.
Explain.
In his feet, he has flat feet like Mr. Sneed.
I thought he had the flat feet.
I know how this may look. The only thing I'm trying to do is just try to find out who my baby father is. I had moved from a house to having a car.
All of those remarks and accusations Hatcher made about Scott were the beginning of Judge Lauren's anger. Seeing how careless Hatcher has been, having a sexual relationship with 3 different men, and putting herself and her son in such a tight situation, I understand where the judge's ballistic reaction came from.
You slept with him without protection.
Yeah, I did.
So at this point, the insults are irrelevant. If you would listen and stop talking, you would already see.
No,
You're
ma'am.
not on trial.
No, ma'am.
You don't need to defend yourself.
No, ma'am, I have children. I have 3 kids.
Listen, you don't need to defend yourself, sir.
But the judge was not even done with these 2 yet. Scott and Hatcher were engaged in a heated argument of their own, which clearly pissed off Judge Lauren. Her response to their messy drama was nothing any one of them saw coming. Take a look at this.
Guys, calm down, please.
Truth be told, when this man stepped up and signed the birth certificate, then really that should have been, that's it. Because that's what babies deserve. Their mother and their father in the hospital, 2 years later, still sitting up here arguing.
That's right.
With eeny, meeny, miny, and no.
I'm sorry,
Talking about.
Wow. Hatcher is really desperate for the result to come out, with either of the other men being Josiah's father and not Scott. It makes you wonder what kind of trauma he has put her through. Of course, Judge Lauren notices Hatcher's demeanor, and she asks her to put her emotions into words. Here is what Hatcher had to say.
You know, I'm ashamed that I'm here for this for my son, because I would have never thought I'd be a kind of woman like this. It wasn't like I was in a relationship with none of these, but I feel that I should know.
And now you've gotten yourself centered back in the place where you know this is really not about you, it's about your son.
It's not about me.
Because this courtroom is about children.
Well, I'm glad that Hatcher is willing to put her best into ensuring that Josiah has a better upbringing. Once all of this is over, little Josiah will not only have a father in his life, but also be brought up with love from both parents. Meanwhile, Scott passionately expresses his own will to do right by Josiah if the boy turns out to be his.
Then we find out who his father is, whether it is me, him, or him. I want to know, because if he's mine, I want to be with him. I got 3 kids. I would give my last for mine. I would give my last for my kids. And if that boy is mine, he gonna know he got love.
Well, that's nice, but at this point, it's time we know who Josiah's biological father is. Are you curious to know if the baby daddy is Sneed, Scott, or Blake? Then stick around and you will find out soon enough.
Mr. Sneed is not Josiah's father. Mr. Blake, you are not the father. Mr. Scott, you are the father.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. You happy?
Thank you. That means he has my name and I don't have to change it.
Well, I guess Hatcher is stuck with Scott. Jokes aside, this case is not about both parties but little Josiah. So, just like Judge Lauren says, more like rants, whatever issue they both have with each other should be sorted out for Josiah's sake. Don't you think so?
Listen, now you two have to help Josiah. You have to help one another and help this child. Why is it you can't be adult and I don't want to hear anything else? I want to tell you something. You all have to love Josiah more than you dislike one another.
Gabriela Lopez, a mother of 2 beautiful children, Aliana and Noah, is at the court to prove that her ex, Horacio Carbajal, is the father of her kids. All of this happened after Carbajal and his family did a homemade DNA test on the kids to find out if they were his, a test Lopez claims was fabricated. But first, Judge Lauren sought to know when the paternity doubt sets in.
You meet each other.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm trying to figure out why was there ever doubt in the first place.
Well, I met her through a social network. She told me, hey, come see me, you know, for the weekend or just one night. So I went to go see her. And that day that I went to go see her, she'd be like, we basically have sex that first night.
It was not that
yes,
first night.
It was.
No.
Yes, it
No,
was
it
the first
wasn't.
night. Yes,
No.
it was.
Okay, from Lopez's testimony, it is crystal clear that Carbajal did not plan to have a baby with her. Yet, they had 2. I'm confused at this point. How did they go on to create 2 babies, 1 year apart, if that's the case? Meanwhile, Carbajal is of the opinion that Lopez wants his money and deceives him into believing that he is Aliana and Noah's dad.
All she's doing this because she wants our money. She knows my
I don't
family.
care
She
about money,
She knows my
okay?
family has money, and she knows I don't work.
I don't care about
don't
money,
work,
Your
right?
Honor. growing up, I did not have a father, and I did not want my daughter growing up without a father.
Well,
It hurts me to know that she does not have him around. He says he's the father. He even has her name tattooed on his arm. He was there.
Wait, so after he had already bonded with Aliana and was 100% certain that she was his, all it took was a picture of a random man who his sister's friend thought looked like the baby for Carbajal to start having doubts that he was Aliana's father. Unbelievable. Even Judge Lauren was taken aback upon hearing this.
Okay, so all you got is a picture on a cell phone and you go, oh, this guy looks just like my niece. I don't think my brother's the father. What other doubt do you have? Did you witness? Did you hear about her sleeping with other people?
My family was, when they were born, they didn't look nothing like us. My mom and my dad were saying
Your daughter did look
that
like you.
they had nothing related to us.
Oh, it seems like Mama Lopez has a thing or two to add to the situation at hand. Did anyone else see how fast she rose to speak when the Carbajals were attacking her daughter? Even Judge Lauren had to ask her to take a spot next to her daughter so she could also give her own testimony. But what does Mama Lopez have to say? Let's find out.
What is it that you'd like to add? They're saying they were at the hospital. You say they weren't?
They were at the hospital after they were born. I was there when Aliana was born, when she was being pulled out of my daughter. Second time around, he wasn't there either for the Noah's birth. I was there for Noah's birth. I was there for both babies.
Why could I be?
Why is it? Because you were never around.
I was gonna go.
You changed your phone number.
Since all it takes to determine paternity is looking at a picture, Mama Lopez also has a point. I mean, the Carbajal sister did the same when she looked at a picture and decided that her brother wasn't Aliana's father. And it seemed like Mama Lopez was successful with her picture theory, because now Carbajal's argument is that Noah has something no one has in his family, a cleft lip.
My little boy, my little grandson looks just like your dad because there are pictures. There's pictures that we looked side by side. He looks like your dad. You may be light complected,
So
but
why
your
was he
dad
born?
is
Why
dark.
was he born with the cleft lip? Why was he born with the cleft lip?
That has nothing to do with genes from you
My
guys.
family does not have
Your
a
Honor.
history of cleft lip.
Oh God, nothing. This woman has said since the court session began has helped her case. And now, there is another evidence against her? I'm not surprised that she couldn't get out of this one easily. That aside, the issue of the Carbajals taking a home DNA test resurfaced as the judge wanted to know the circumstances surrounding that allegation. And I'm sure you do too.
He did a paternity test that he bought from the store. I did not know about it until he gave me the results that came back.
So you took a home, and at home,
Off the counter. We bought
DNA
it.
test.
Yes, my mom bought it off the counter. They came with swabbing things, you know?
Okay, so it came with all of the utensils,
Yes,
everything
and
you
then
needed.
paperwork.
That's another round of unnecessary arguments starting over again. In a bid to move past the issue without any more drama, Judge Lauren examines the evidence of the over-the-counter DNA from Carbajal.
So here are the results of the test, but I don't see any identification, no need for a witness signature, and you say one of the names is spelled wrong?
Yes, my daughter's first name is actually spelled wrong on there.
And so, Ms. Lopez, you're saying that this test is fraudulent?
Yes, I was not there to witness it.
Well, the result turned out to be an unreliable document, and it was scrapped. At this point, what everyone actually needs is the real DNA result. It is time to find out if Carbajal is truly the baby daddy or not. Let's see for ourselves.
Mr. Carbajal, you are not her father. Okay, now we have the answers for Aliana. We still have to get Noah's.
My mom wouldn't have spent so much money on those tests to
We
be
spend a
swabbing
lot of
other
money.
people.
We spend a
other
lot of
kids.
money to do those tests.
You guys should have still told us what you were
No,
going
you
to
think we were
do.
gonna tell you? Think you guys were gonna let us do it? No.
We would have let you do
No, you
it.
wouldn't.
I would have let you do it, yes.
This is such a sad sight. The results haven't been completely read, yet all these people could do is argue again. It was at this point that Judge Lauren lashed out at all of them for their nasty behavior.
We have the results now from a laboratory conducted DNA test, and you sitting up there still arguing about a home DNA test. Now I know you all don't have no sense. Just looking for something to argue about. You're just looking for something to say. What you need to be talking about is that lie you told saying you weren't sleeping with nobody else.
But the judge wasn't even done with her yet. I don't blame her for going all crazy of Lopez because she made the Carbajals seem like they were in the wrong when she was just a dirty liar all along.
Now put your hand down and look at me. You don't get to go into boo-boo cry mode.
You don't even
You're
talk
learning a valuable
I got nothing to say
lesson
anymore.
right now.
They're not my kids.
Mr. Carbajal, quiet. I'm trying to talk to you because this has got to be a learning day for you. Because you can lie only for so long, honey. There's a phrase say, if it don't come out in the wash, it's coming out in the what?
Well, 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 folks. Looks like we've got another wild one on our hands today. This young man, Damien, was on a mission to find out who his real dad was, and his mom, Miss Johnson, was not holding back. Turns out, she was a bit of a wild child back in the day, and poor Damien had 6 potential fathers to choose from.
Couple of questions. The first question we asked Mr. Slaughter was, what was the nature of your relationship with Miss Johnson, and how did you find out about Damien?
We met through a mutual friend. I know might have been sometime in the early 90s. We kind of lost track of each other after, our relations, and then I seen her later on in life.
Now, the first guy they brought in, Mr. Slaughter, seemed like he might have been the one. He and Miss Johnson had a little fling back in the 90s, and he even admitted that she told him he could be the dad about 2 years ago. But then he dropped a bombshell. He said she actually told him about it when Damien was 13 years old.
You basically started calling everybody. You admittedly were sleeping with multiple men. You said you were fast, and you said you were sleeping around. So you just said, you know what? I'm fanning out and I'm telling everybody I was having sex with, you could potentially be my son's biological father.
Yes, because we didn't end up following through with it back then, and that's why we're here today.
We didn't have the money. Like, my mom was doing everything by herself.
And let me tell you, Damien was not having any of it. He called out his mom for being fast and sleeping around, but he also made it clear that he just wants to know who his dad is, no matter how old he is. The poor kid's been without a father his whole life, and he's not gonna let his mom off the hook until she figures it out.
How does that make you feel when he says he would like to be there for you? He would like to be a...
It feels good knowing that somebody is willing to step up and be there, if they are my dad, It'd just be nice to know who my dad is, just be able to call somebody dad.
Of course it would. And I want you to understand that every person has that desire, and that's why we do this, for you. Miss Johnson, your son...
Mr. Slaughter seemed to have a change of heart, though. He told the court that if he's proven to be Damien's dad, he's ready to step up and be a good role model and mentor. Damien seemed touched by that, saying it would be nice to have a dad in his life, even if it's a little late in the game.
I feel in my heart that he's Damien's, and that would be the only one to carry on his name.
And that's why the stakes are so high.
Absolutely, because that's 22 years of her son, her brother, that they missed out on.
Well, yes, but they missed out on it, Miss Johnson, and I want to say this to you respectfully, because what I appreciate about you...
But then the judge dropped another bombshell. There's 6 potential father, a guy named Mr. Harmon. Miss Johnson admitted that they had a few sexual encounters, and that's why he could be the dad. Poor Damien. He just looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. You could see the pain in his eyes.
Wasn't one. We hung out a couple times and had a couple sexual encounters, and that was it. There was nothing whatsoever.
So this was just sex?
Yes.
But it was unprotected.
Yep.
Which is why you say he could potentially be Damien's biological father.
Right.
Well, Mr. Harmon is here. And we'd like to hear from him. Jerome, will you please escort Mr. Harmon into the courtroom?
The judge, bless her heart, really tried to lift Damien's spirits. She told him that he's an incredible young man and that he should never feel like he's not worth it. She promised they'd keep testing everyone until they get the answer he needs and that he's not going to be in this fight alone.
So you have been friends and you've seen Damien, been around him, but you never knew he could potentially be your biological son?
No, I didn't. I have other kids, but I don't think that he's mine.
So, Ms. Johnson, how did you tell Mr. Harmon he could be the father? I mean, he says he knows you. He's seen Damien.
I'm still friends with Mr. Henley and Mr. Slaughter.
Then they brought in Mr. Harmon, and the plot thickened even more. Turns out he and Miss Johnson have been friends for a while, but he had no idea Damien could be his son until just 4 weeks ago. The judge was clearly frustrated, wondering why Miss Johnson waited so long to bring this guy into the mix.
I don't care what it is, and I want you to know that there are people that will go to war with you to find out the answers you need. And honey, you will never be in this fight by yourself. You got a soldier in me. You understand?
The tension in that courtroom was palpable, folks. You could feel the emotions swirling around, with Damien on the verge of tears, and the judge determined to get to the bottom of this mess. When the judge said they were going to test every single potential father, even if there were 33 of them, you could tell she meant business.
Mr. Harmon, you are not the father. Mr. Slaughter is not the father. Mr. Henley, you are not the father. The percentage of relatedness between Miss Lethea Murray and Damien Johnson is 0.00%. You are not related.
Miss Foster is convinced that she's the best mother in the world, and she's here to prove that her ex-boyfriend, Mr. Jackson, is the father of her daughter, Jakia. But Mr. Jackson is having none of it. He claims Miss Foster cheated on him multiple times during their relationship, and there's no way Jakia is his kid. This is gonna be a wild ride, folks.
Your ex-boyfriend planned your pregnancy only to have him abandon you and deny paternity. You are here to prove that he is your daughter, Jakia's biological father. You want him to step up and take care of his daughter. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson, you say Miss Foster cheated on you multiple times during your relationship, and there is no way.
All right, let's dive in. Miss Foster starts off by telling the judge that she and Mr. Jackson had planned this pregnancy, but then he just up and abandoned her and denied paternity. She's confident Jakia is his daughter, and she wants him to step up and take care of her.
He was claiming my first child knowing she wasn't his baby, but then when we planned a baby, he doesn't deny this child at all.
Wait. I want to understand this. So this first baby was not his biological child.
Correct.
But he took you home to his mother like, look at my girlfriend and our baby.
Correct.
Then what happened?
In the midst of us staying together, he told me I was going to be his baby's mother because I'm the best mother in the world.
Turns out Miss Foster and Mr. Jackson met on social media. Shocker, right? Apparently, they had a mutual friend who vouched for Mr. Jackson. So, Miss Foster jumped right into a relationship with him. But things got complicated when Miss Foster had a child from a previous relationship, and Mr. Jackson started claiming that kid as his own, even though it wasn't his.
No, Your Honor, he doesn't think. He had a whole nother girlfriend out of town. He wanted to play house here and there and have us in a polygamous relationship, which he don't got it like that.
Actually, I wasn't playing house.
Actually, he was.
Then, at some point, you find out you're pregnant again.
Yes, Your Honor, after he left out of town again.
So what happened?
I was talking in a relationship with him, and when I found out he was in a relationship with the other female.
Now, the real drama starts when Miss Foster reveals that she got pregnant with Jakia while Mr. Jackson was out of town with another woman. She says she was sleeping with 2 different guys around the same time, and she's not sure who the father is. But she's convinced it's Mr. Jackson, even though he's adamant that he's not the dad.
But you still in my mama's house when I left, though, you feel me?
That's pointless. I mean, that matters nothing to me.
How many times I was like,
you left, you brought me her, you left
but her
to
and
go
my
be with
mama
somebody
get back
else.
cool for
Me
some
and my
reason.
baby stayed. That's just what it was.
So, Miss Foster, I want you to take me to the day you found out you were pregnant.
I fell to the floor. I did 3 rolls around the floor in the doctor's office because I wasn't having no kids if...
The judge tries to get to the bottom of the timeline, and it turns out Miss Foster waited a whole month to tell Mr. Jackson she was pregnant. She says they weren't speaking at the time, but come on, you'd think she'd want to get that news out there as soon as possible, right? Mr. Jackson didn't even know about Jakia until she was 6 months old.
I went to the doctor's office. They gave me the conception calendar. I got pregnant February 21st. That's the same day you left. So that week and that week before, I had a menstrual period. We're sleeping together the entire time. While I'm on in the shower every night, every day, 3 times a day, lunch,
We was
breakfast,
only
and dinner,
together
and I
for
was
2
the
weeks.
third.
What are you talking? We was together for 2 weeks, bro.
7 days to get pregnant, baby.
Well,
now, the real bombshell drops. Miss Foster admits that she was sleeping with both Mr. Jackson and another guy, Marquise, around the time of conception, but she swears that during the window when Jakia was conceived, she only slept with Mr. Jackson.
You told me you had 2 boyfriends because he had 2 girlfriends, and you were sleeping with them at the same time. What I'm asking is, were you having a sexual relationship with the other guy at the same time you were having it with Mr. Jackson?
Not the exact same time. No, Your Honor, I was not.
So it is your testimony that during the window of conception...
The judge really lays into Miss Foster, telling her that she needs to stop the performance and start being honest. She can see that Miss Foster is a strong woman who's been through a lot, and she's trying to protect herself and her child. But the judge also makes it clear that it's not fair to Jakia to grow up with only 1 parent, especially when she has 2.
So we haven't been able to establish
basically
a relationship.
They on the phone, best friends. Then the next day,
So
she
you
on the
have
bathroom.
never seen this baby in person?
No,
In your life? Never hugged her, never nothing?
not yet. No.
15 months? This is the part that drives me crazy. Everybody know how to meet halfway to make a baby, but don't know how to meet halfway to come see the baby and establish a relationship with a parent.
Now, the moment of truth, the DNA results are in. It's time to find out who Jakia's father really is.
Mr. Jackson, you are not the father. What's funny?
That's why I left.
You just performing now? Like I said, you want your baby to be a stage show? That's on you. Keep performing. But if you're gonna be a mother to a real human being and a beautiful little girl like that,
Oof. Looks like we've got another messy situation on our hands here, folks. Tiffany is trying to prove that her boyfriend Josh is the father of her 1-month-old son, Jackson. But the twist? Tiffany admits she cheated on Josh with his best friend while they were on a break. Yikes.
petition the court for a DNA test to prove that the defendant is the father of your 1-month-old son, Jackson. You hope these results will save your family because you have 2 other kids together. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Byram, you say the plaintiff admitted to sleeping with another man, and when the results prove you are not Jackson's father.
Now, Josh isn't too happy about this whole situation. He claims Tiffany has cheated on him before, and this time, he actually caught her in the act with his buddy. Can you imagine the awkwardness of that? Finding your girlfriend and your best friend hiding in the attic of her grandma's house?
You know, she was over there with the kids. I seen him on the couch at first through the window, and then that's when I started banging on the doors and the windows, and then I go in the house. He's hiding up in the attic of her grandma's house.
Hiding in the attic?
Yes, ma'am. Hiding in the attic up in her grandma's house. I told him, you gotta...
How did you find him in the attic?
I started searching the house because I had a feeling that they were together.
But Tiffany insists that she and Josh were on a 1-month break when she slept with his friend. She says Josh was dating someone else too, so she figured it was fair game. I don't know about that.
Period, the end. That's it.
Well, you shouldn't treat me like crap, and you've always accused
Whatever
me.
you say.
So when did you sleep with Mr. Byram? You say you are certain he's the father of Jackson. When did you sleep with him?
September 27th.
September 27th.
She could have slept with him the same day.
I slept with him on September 25th. That's why we're here today for the results.
Now, the judge is trying to get to the bottom of all this. She's asking some tough questions like why Tiffany would cheat on Josh if he was constantly accusing her of it anyway. The judge has a point. If Josh was always suspicious, why did Tiffany feel the need to actually go and cheat?
And so this thing with the friend wasn't a one-time thing?
No.
They were in a relationship after I moved out.
We were in a relationship
They got together.
when me and him split up for that month.
No, they were together from like July all the way until November. This isn't just a month thing. This was like a 4-month thing.
I'm saying we were in a potential relationship.
And then you all, after all of this, you got back together?
I wanted to get back together because my daughter is in love with me.
And then there's the whole issue of Josh not fully bonding with baby Jackson. He admits he's having a hard time, saying he can't love Jackson the same way he loves his other 2 kids because he's not sure if he's the father. That's gotta be tough, not knowing if this little one is really yours. No wonder he's been keeping his distance.
Or the other potential father?
No, the other potential father is actually incarcerated right now, or else he would be here too.
Dude's in prison. I've been taking care of her and both of the kids. Don't get me wrong, her grandma helps us out with diapers and stuff, but I've been taking care of her and our kids by myself. She don't work.
I go to school. I go to cosmetology school, and the only reason I had to drop out was because I had the baby, so.
Oof, the moment of truth is finally here. Both Tiffany and Josh look nervous, but for different reasons. Tiffany's hoping the results will save her family, while Josh is bracing himself for the possibility that Jackson might not be his. This is it, folks. Will the results bring this couple closer together, or will it drive them further apart?
Mr. Byram, you are the father.
Yes!
Congratulations.
Thank you. That really helped me out a lot.
How does it feel now?
Feels great. Almost want to cry that he's mine.
That would be fine. You've been through a lot. No, really. And I can see by the way you talked about how you love your other children.
This plaintiff, Michael Taylor, claims he had a whirlwind 2-week romance with the defendant, Samantha Orr. And after it ended, she called to tell him she was pregnant with his child. But get this, when Michael showed up at the hospital for the baby's birth, another man was there, and now Michael is convinced the baby isn't his.
Whirlwind 2-week romance with the defendant, and after it ended, she called to tell you that she was pregnant with your child. You say another man was at the hospital for the baby's birth, and therefore your DNA test will come back negative. Dodge his responsibility, and you are confident you will prove he is your child's father. Is that correct?
Your Honor.
Now, Michael claims this isn't the first time he's tried to get a DNA test from Samantha. He says he's been asking for one since the moment he found out about the baby, but Samantha has been dodging it at every turn. She's even gone so far as to argue with him, saying the baby looks just like him and that's proof enough.
No, I'm not, Your Honor.
All right, take me back. I want to understand how this relationship started.
Offline. I met her offline dating website.
Okay,
June
and then you all
14th.
decided to meet in person.
Yes, ma'am. June 14th.
And so you had sex with Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Unprotected sex?
Yes.
After meeting her on a dating site, you said the relationship lasted 2 weeks.
Yes, Your Honor.
And how many times did you have sex within that 2-week span?
All right, let's rewind a bit and get the backstory on how these two even ended up in this mess. Turns out they met on a dating website and decided to meet up in person. And after that first meeting, they were already getting busy. Unprotected, no less. Yikes. Talk about moving fast.
September the 1st.
Okay.
Of 2016.
And when you realize you're pregnant, do you tell Mr. Taylor? Do you call him? Are you all still even in contact?
No, Your Honor.
I call him.
We were
I
not in
contact
contact.
him through Facebook to let him know I'm pregnant.
No,
So wait a minute, by the time you
let me know she was pregnant.
Did you say the baby is yours or it could be yours?
Could be yours.
Samantha claims they had sex more than 10 times in that first week. But Michael says it was only a couple of times the following week. Someone's not being entirely truthful here. And get this, Samantha admits there were other men she was intimate with around the time she got pregnant, but she claims Michael was the only one she was with when she was off her birth control. Looks like we've got a real player on our hands, folks.
Mr. Taylor, do you remember the story going that way?
She told me it was mine, yes, but I did not agree to them terms, no, because I myself knew of 3 other different possibilities.
No, there's no other
It's conception, not a contract. Jerome, he said he did not agree to those terms, okay?
Okay.
When did you find out the baby was born?
I found out the baby was born a week after.
Now, when Samantha realized she was pregnant, she says she called Michael to let him know. But Michael says Samantha also told him there were other possible fathers, which is why he didn't believe the baby was his in the first place. And get this, Samantha didn't even bother to call Michael when the baby was born. She just waited a whole week to reach out on Facebook.
Because I was told by the nurse there was another man in her room.
That was a
when
friend
she
guy.
had this child.
Really?
He was a friend guy.
Was this a friend you've been intimate with in the past?
No.
So why is he up at the hospital?
Because he's supposed to have been like the godfather of my son.
How did you have time to notify the godfather and not the biological father? And yet you are blocking him from being there at the most important moment. I don't understand.
But the plot thickens even more when Samantha reveals that another man was actually present at the hospital when the baby was born. She claims this guy was just a friend, but Michael's not buying it. He thinks Samantha had time to notify this friend about the birth, but couldn't even be bothered to let the supposed father know.
And then the next one you say, father like son, with a heart, and you're holding the baby.
Right, Your Honor, that was on her Facebook.
And then the next one says, love my son.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then the next one says, first time me feeding him. So, Mr. Taylor, I will say this, the posts you put on Facebook, they look like you do want to be a part of this child's life.
But the real kicker is when Samantha tries to pull a fast one and sends Michael a collage of pictures comparing the baby to another man, claiming that's proof the baby doesn't look like the other guy. Newsflash, Samantha, that's not helping your case at all. In fact, it's just making Michael even more suspicious.
Did not tell me until Eric was a week old. I am unbelievably shocked. I do not know why. I do not know why I deserve it.
What I want to understand is,
For the fact of she had made me had doubt that he was not mine.
how did she give you that doubt?
Because she told me to take the pictures of her son off Facebook. Your Honor, she's basically harassed me that this is nothing but my child.
She has the audacity to claim the baby has a crooked penis, and that's somehow proof Michael is the father, because he has the same condition. Wow, talk about grasping at straws. The judge is clearly not impressed, and even brings in a medical expert to weigh in on this whole crooked penis situation. Turns out it's not really a reliable indicator of paternity, but nice try, Samantha.
6 weeks early. And then Mr. Taylor said, here's DNA. Oh, I love my son. That makes...
Picture of a comparison that she had sent me of me
Let me see that, Jerome.
and Eric, and another possibility to Eric.
That's you on the bottom right, that's baby
Right.
Eric in the corners,
Yes, Your Honor.
and another man is on the top left?
Yes, Your Honor.
Why do you send them a collage of pictures with the baby?
All right, the moment of truth has arrived. Time for the DNA results.
Mr. Taylor, you are not the father.
Give me
Calm down, Mr. Taylor. I know this was disappointing. I could tell from the pictures you had formed a bond with the baby.
I wish I never knew her. I don't see how that's...
So even though you had doubts, it is obvious you were coming here hoping to be wrong.
Right.
Ooh boy, we've got a real doozy on our hands today, folks. This paternity court case is a wild ride from start to finish. Miss Clark was certain her ex-boyfriend, Mr. Newby, was the father of her baby, but he wasn't so convinced.
Dated for only 3 months before you became pregnant with his baby. You say the relationship was moving forward until he left you for a woman you claim is old enough to be his mother. It is your belief that she is the reason Mr. Newby is denying paternity. You do not believe you are the father of her child and claim it has nothing to do with your new girlfriend, Ms. Faulkner.
Miss Clark explained that she and Mr. Newby dated for 3 months before she got pregnant. But then he up and left her for an older woman, Miss Faulkner. Miss Clark reckons this new lady put all sorts of ideas in Mr. Newby's head, making him doubt the baby was his.
Miss Clark, first of all, before there was ever Miss Faulkner, you and Mr. Newby had a relationship.
Yes.
I need you to take me back to that.
Your Honor, when I met him, I was in drug use, but, we were together for 3 months. He was in drug use. 5 years later, my mother had died when I was 18 years old because of cancer. So when he left me when I was 7 months pregnant.
But Mr. Newby had his own side of the story. He claimed Miss Clark was seeing another guy around the time of conception, and he wasn't convinced the baby was his. Uh-oh, looks like we've got a classic he said, she said situation on our hands.
We were gonna be, have a family, so I was excited about that because I felt that my son was gonna have a father and a mother, and instead.
We were not supposed to be, it's all wrong.
All right,
I told her from the beginning when she first went to jail, she would call me, and yeah, I would talk to her because I was thinking that the baby might possibly be mine. I've had my doubts from the very beginning. She's constantly lied. She's cheated on me with her ex, like, what, 3-4 times?
No, only
Something like
once.
that.
Now, Miss Clark had a pretty rough past. Her dad had died by suicide when she was just 13, and her mom passed away from cancer a few years later. So when Mr. Newby left her while she was 7 months pregnant, she felt totally abandoned. But she said she cleaned up her act, getting off the drugs for the sake of her baby.
That wasn't a secret. That wasn't a secret. I said it in front of you, in front of him, and in front of his family.
Miss Faulkner, I have to ask you, when he was showing the sonogram picture at work, were you in a relationship with him then?
No, I was not.
So why was it your business what he was showing?
Because I was a friend of his.
And you're old enough.
I have always been a friend of his.
She's always been a really good friend of mine.
Yeah, but you're old enough.
My point is that, now, I want to hear more about this doubt.
Mr. Newby, on the other hand, seemed to have some trust issues. He claimed Miss Clark had cheated on him multiple times, even during the time of conception. Miss Clark only admitted to one instance of cheating, but Mr. Newby wasn't buying it. He said he wanted a DNA test from the very beginning, but Miss Clark kept refusing.
And then I looked,
Yeah,
I told everybody at work, I ran home trying to get it right up there,
but
and she was just playing.
You sent him a picture of a fake baby.
Well, it was a picture of the internet. It was on the internet or whatever, and I sent him the picture, but I was just upset
And then she
because
questions why
he
he
had left
questions
me.
you.
Okay,
he had left
what
me.
was your intention behind sending the picture of the fake baby? I need to understand that.
Things got even messier when Mr. Newby mentioned that Miss Clark had sent him a picture of a baby, pretending it was their son. What? That's just plain messed up. Looks like Miss Clark was trying to get Mr. Newby to show some interest in the baby, even if it wasn't really his. Not cool at all.
The day after my son was born, I said, you can come up here and see the baby, but do not have her drop you off or come to the hospital. He said, oh no, I'm
And
getting
what
a
does
ride
it
from
matter if
Denver.
I drop him off? I was the only one willing to give him a
but
ride
that's
to
disrespectful
see his
me.
own kid.
That's disrespectful.
I have kids. I know what it's like to be a single mom,
disrespectful
and I
to
would
me,
not
so
be
why would
with
you
Jesse
even
if
do
he
that?
would not take care of his responsibilities.
Okay,
If you
that was
really wanted a
disrespectful.
father,
And then there's Miss Faulkner, Mr. Newby's new girlfriend. She seemed to be stirring up all kinds of drama between the exes. When Mr. Newby was showing off the sonogram picture at work, Miss Faulkner apparently told him to put it down, saying he didn't even know if the baby was his.
Mr. Newby has reason to believe that he could possibly be the father.
He has been there.
Why would you have any issue with him being
I
there
don't.
until he
her son has been at our
finds
house.
out otherwise?
We have watched her son.
Yeah,
we have
because
babysat for
whenever
her.
That
she
goes
needs to
whenever
find
when
somebody
he was
else.
holding up the
for
sonogram picture, why'd you tell him to take it down?
I didn't tell him to take it down. I said, why are you showing a picture of a baby? You don't even know if it's yours.
But the real kicker was when Mr. Newby said he'd fight for custody if the baby turned out to be his, because he thought Miss Clark was an unfit mother. Whoa, those are fighting words. He brought up how Miss Clark had used drugs while pregnant, putting the baby at risk.
Now, Ms. Clark, how have you tried to get him in your child's life?
I would call him and ask him if he can watch him or whatever, if he wants to see him. He said, I can't right now, I'm busy.
That is
I
not true.
want to
And you
take care of the
didn't even-
baby. I
you didn't even
tried
let him see
taking
the
care of
kid
the baby.
until
You would
after
not
your
let
man
me.
went to
You only
jail.
bought, how many
Yeah.
diapers have you bought? You only bought 2 packs of diapers. You
And
haven't
when
even bought
we bought
anything,
stuff for the
so-
baby, she refused. She said, because Joanne got it, I
Yep,
don't
she didn't
want
want
it.
none of it.
Because I bought it.
The judge seemed to be on Miss Clark's side, though. She pointed out that Mr. Newby and his girlfriend didn't exactly have their lives together either, with both of them looking for work. The judge said she didn't see any evidence that Miss Clark was an unfit mother and that Mr. Newby needed to step up and be a dad if the baby was his. So, is the baby his?
Mr. Newby, you are the father.
It's not a bad thing. Like, I never tried to deny him. I just wanted some clarity.
You did deny him.
I will defend him in this. He did not tell this court he denied him. He told this court he had doubt. That would indicate that Miss Clark is an unfit mother. But I am a firm believer that fathers have a huge role to play in their child's lives. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Court is adjourned.
Thank you.
Today we have a 19-year-old woman named Celeste who's trying to prove that the defendant, David Hayslip, is her real father. Celeste grew up believing David was her dad, but he's been absent for most of her life. Now she wants answers and is hoping the DNA test will finally give her the closure she needs.
You are seeking a DNA test to prove that Mr. Hayslip, the defendant, is your biological father. You've believed he is your biological father for many years, yet you say he has never allowed you into his life. You acknowledge that your mother may have had sexual relations with multiple men at the time of your conception, but you claim you were always told that Mr. Hayslip was your father. You've brought your aunt along here today for moral support.
Turns out, David had no idea Celeste even existed until the cops pulled him over and told him he owed child support. Can you imagine? Just minding your own business, driving down the road, and then bam, you're suddenly a dad. David claims the timeline doesn't add up, saying he only knew Celeste's mom for a month, but Celeste was born a couple months later.
You are also asking Ms. Hayslip to change her last name so that she no longer has yours after today's test results are revealed.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Hayslip, when did you first hear that Ms. Hayslip is potentially your daughter?
I had moved from southern Michigan to northern Michigan. I was on my way back, about a 200-mile trip to southern Michigan. I was pulled over for speeding.
But Celeste's aunt, Susie, has a different story. She says she's been trying to get David to acknowledge Celeste for years, even bringing her to a family gathering once, but he refused to accept her. Ouch, that's gotta sting. Susie's convinced Celeste is David's daughter, and she's here to support her niece in finding out the truth, once and for all.
The timeline's off, you know, there's no way. It's off by at least 2 months. I had only seen her mother for maybe a month.
And you submitted those dates to the court in the form of a calendar of sorts. So, according to this calendar, you were intimate with Ms. Hayslip's mother in October and November.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, David's daughter, Courtney, takes the stand, and she's not exactly thrilled about the idea of having a long-lost sister. She's worried Celeste might be a bad influence on her other siblings, since Courtney's had a few run-ins with the law herself. Yikes, talk about family drama. It's clear there's a lot of tension and mistrust going on here.
I kept asking her and asking her and asking her to let me know Celeste, get to know her. She denied me. She wouldn't let me get to know her.
Really?
Yes. And then finally, after several months, she finally set it up to where that I could meet Celeste. My first impression of her, I thought she looked a lot like me when I was little. And we had a bond that we had connected, and then we started getting close, and then her mother...
The judge tries to calm the situation, reminding everyone that none of us are perfect, and it's never too late for a fresh start. She encourages David to open his heart and get to know Celeste, his potential daughter, but David's still hesitant, saying he doesn't even want Celeste to have his last name if she turns out to be his kid. Ouch, that's a pretty harsh stance.
You kept it from how long?
Till she
I told him the truth.
Yeah.
So there was no time in between where you mentioned,
To my children?
this could possibly be an issue.
No.
And then you found out this girl that's in my class could be my sister.
Yeah.
Wow.
The moment of truth has arrived, and the judge reads the results. Drum roll, please.
Mr. Hayslip, you are her father. Well, at least now we know your money spent was not in. And you have a beautiful young lady over here that the name she carries is in fact her rightful name.
That has changed my mind.
We've got an 11-year relationship on the rocks, a wedding that got called off, and some serious doubts about the paternity of a 7-month-old baby. Let's dive in and see what went down.
Ms. Greenhouse, you summoned Mr. Thompson to court for a DNA test for your 7-month-old son, G.
Yes, Your Honor.
You claim he has neglected his responsibilities as a father since you called off the wedding last month.
Yes, Your Honor.
Additionally, you were also suing Mr. Thompson for $750, the amount of the down payment you put on a vehicle for him.
Yes, Your Honor.
The drama starts when Kristen Greenhouse drags her ex, Gregory Thompson, into court, demanding a DNA test for their son, G. Kristen claims Gregory has been neglecting his responsibilities as a father ever since she called off their wedding a month ago. But Gregory isn't having it.
After 11 years, you just figured that out?
No, it's like, no, we were together for 11 years off and on, but I had my 4-year-old son, right? I went off to college. Right after I had my 4-year-old son, I got pregnant, and we tried to make it work there. In between the 4 years that after my son was born, we tried off and on, and it still hasn't worked out, and I just finally got tired of it. Every time I turn around is, you messing with this person, you're sleeping with this person, but Greg dropped me off at work everywhere I go. He has my phone, he dropped me off and picked me up.
Things really start to heat up when Gregory's mom, Susan, also questions the paternity of G. She says the baby doesn't even look like her son, and she's got some serious doubts. Kristen tries to explain their 11-year on and off relationship, but Gregory's not having it. He claims Kristen was always accusing him of cheating, and that's what led to their constant breakups.
She was still having sex with multiple partners.
That's a lie. You asked me who did I have sex. It was never multiple partners.
It's not a lie.
Come at me like,
it's not a lie. What I do?
2 weeks
What
prior,
I do?
Then we had sex.
My bad, Mom. What I do? I went through your phone. I went through your Facebook.
2 weeks prior.
It ain't no 2 weeks.
She testified 2 weeks before, and you're questioning that time frame? If so, how?
Like I said, around that time, we wasn't together. We was seeing each other a little cordially here and there, but not really.
The back and forth between these two is intense. Kristen says she stuck with Gregory for all those years because she loved him, but Gregory argues that she only stayed because of their older son, SJ. He insists he was the one trying to hold the family together, not Kristen.
8 out of the 11, every time I brought this back together. And she used to say it then, you only with me, or you only try to keep this together because of SJ, which is my first boy. And
that's a lie. That's a lie.
Man, look at here. Like I said,
we was only together because of SJ.
This is what you told me multiple times. You don't really want to be with me, Greg. You only with me because of SJ.
I told you that.
Kristen brings in her sister Chante as a witness, and she testifies that she heard Gregory refuse a DNA test when G was born. But Gregory denies this, saying he never turned down a test. The judge is clearly getting frustrated with all the he said, she said.
These are the main ones who helped you draw your relationship to the ground.
What do they got to do with it? You keep living in the past.
I'm not living in
You are.
I'm moving on, baby. I'm trying to figure out if G is mine.
Greg, and so you say her family has interfered. How?
When we in the dirt and we struggling, we come up on a little here and there.
Things really start to boil over when Gregory brings up the fact that Kristen has helped her family out financially over the years, but he claims she never does the same for him. Kristen fires back, saying she's the one who's always helping Gregory and his family when they're struggling. The judge has to step in and shut them both up before it gets out of hand.
Around that time, like I said, she was talking to multiple guys, and she's admitted. And then, like I said, from jump, not
Before
to go
we had
back,
this,
she
like
said,
I told you, I
she
had
said a week.
with somebody else.
Everything
2
hit
weeks.
the fan.
2 weeks.
It was a wrap.
No, 2 weeks.
What do you mean? When you say when everything hit the fan, it was a wrap?
When we start breaking up or problems start.
The judge tries to get the focus back on the paternity issue, but Gregory just can't let go of his suspicions. He tells the court that his older son, SJ, has even said that Gregory isn't his real dad. The judge is clearly exasperated, telling Gregory to be more respectful to the women in his life.
This is not the first time it came up when she contacted you.
Your Honor, he said that my son
I said something in the hospital.
Mr. Thompson,
when we was living together.
Did you help choose the name?
I did it. Yeah, I chose the name. I came up with it.
You were at the hospital when G was born?
I've been with her the whole time since pregnant.
And you signed the birth certificate?
Yes.
Finally, the moment of truth arrives. The DNA test results are in, and the judge is ready to reveal whether Gregory is really G's father.
Mr. Thompson, you are the father. You are the father.
I feel more relief.
For what? And you knew this from jump?
No, I didn't.
You knew this from jump?
You knew I had doubts from jump.
Everyone's entitled to their beliefs or doubt, but my whole thing is like, don't doubt my son when I break up with you because you're disrespectful.
Miss Reed claims the father of her 3-month-old son, Keandre, is Miss Campbell's deceased son, but Miss Campbell is not having it. She says she's never even heard of Miss Reed before her son's tragic death. This is gonna be a wild ride, folks.
Miss Reed, you say the father of your 3-month-old son, Keandre, was tragically murdered early this year. You claim his mother, Miss Campbell, is the biological grandmother, and you are here to prove it today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Reed explains that family means everything to her, since she never got to meet her own dad. She's desperate to prove Miss Campbell is Keandre's grandma, but Miss Campbell is worried about getting too attached in case the DNA doesn't match up. Yikes, the tension is already through the roof. You can tell these two ladies have been through a lot.
I understand.
Miss Campbell, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
All of you. And I know this is very difficult. You say you're being cautious.
Yes.
Can you tell the court why you feel that way?
I love all babies, don't get me wrong. But if it's a baby that belongs to me.
Miss Reed says she and Keandre's dad, Kendrick, were friends with benefits for 8 years. Whoa, that's a long time. But Miss Campbell swears Kendrick never mentioned Miss Reed or a baby on the way. This is getting messy, folks. No wonder Miss Campbell is so cautious. She's scared of losing another piece of her son.
We have to have such difficult testimony right now, but we're just trying to understand this as it relates to the paternity matter. I need to ask you, Miss Reed has testified that she was a friend with benefit. Did your son ever mention a friend?
No, Your Honor.
In Miss Reed?
No, Your Honor. I knew nothing about her up until...
Turns out Kendrick and Miss Campbell were super close. She says he always kept her in the loop about what was going on in his life. So it's really strange that he never told her about having a baby on the way with Miss Reed. Miss Campbell is clearly heartbroken over losing her son, and she doesn't want to risk getting hurt again.
Sounds like you were very close.
Yeah, we had a real close relationship. Because I always used to tell Kendrick, I don't care what you do, what nobody say about you. You keep your head up. And you always call me, let me know what's going on with you, because I never know what's going on with you. And I tell all of them, I want to keep up with all y'all, because see, I stayed in Troy.
Miss Reed reveals she and Kendrick only found out she was pregnant the day after he passed away. Whoa, that's some crazy timing. No wonder Miss Campbell is so skeptical. If Kendrick was so open with her, why didn't he mention this huge life event?
And you agreed to the DNA test because you did want to know.
Exactly.
Did you participate in the birth? Were you there?
No, I didn't know anything about when she had the baby. I didn't know. Only time I found out when she had the baby, when she contacted me in July.
Uh-oh, things are starting to get heated. Miss Reed apologizes for not including Miss Campbell in the birth or updates about the baby. She says she was so out of it from the meds that Kendrick's brother DeQuandre was the first person she called. But Miss Campbell is clearly hurt that she wasn't involved. This is getting tense, y'all.
But I'm sorry that I'm sorry. I'm truly am sorry that I did not contact you to for the birth or anything like that.
Yeah, because I felt like if he is my grandson, I should have been there. I should have been the first one to be called.
That's why I said I'm sorry. I did not know. I'm sorry. I'm truly is. From the bottom of my heart, I am really sorry.
DeQuandre takes the stand and says he believes Keandre is his brother's son, even though Miss Reed and Kendrick weren't exclusive. He thinks Miss Reed has been through too much to be lying about this. But the judge points out there's still a lot of mistrust between these two women. This is one complicated situation.
Anybody else during that time?
No, ma'am. No, Your Honor.
DeQuandre, you may have a seat. Miss Campbell, you've met Keandre, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You've seen the baby. When was the first time you saw him?
The first time I saw Keandre was in the court where we was going to try to do a DNA. And she didn't ask me, I would thought she would have asked me, could I hold him?
When Miss Campbell finally gets to see Keandre in court, she's upset that Miss Reed didn't let her hold him or really get to know him. You can tell she's desperate to be a part of her grandson's life. The judge even calls it odd that Miss Reed didn't include her more. Oof, the shade.
I understand, Your Honor, but it was kind of cool in the courtroom where we was at. And Keandre had on a onesie, and he wasn't nothing but 2 months at the time, and by it being cold, and then plus at the same time Keandre was asleep.
I understand where you're coming from, but given the circumstances?
All right, it's moment of truth time. The DNA results are in, and the judge is about to reveal whether Keandre is truly Miss Campbell's grandson. You can cut the tension with a knife, folks. Everyone is on the edge of their seats waiting to hear the verdict.
It has been determined by this court. The percentage of relatedness is 99%. You are related.
Oh, can I
Thank you for that. Thank you. I needed that.
Whoa, this is gonna be a wild one, folks. We've got a high school jock who's being accused of fathering a 4-year-old daughter. The plaintiff, Miss Smith, is 100% sure this guy is the dad, but he's denying it big time.
Miss Smith, you open your case today because you say a high school romance with the defendant led to the birth of your 4-year-old daughter, Adriana. You testify that you are 100% certain he fathered your child, and once proven today, you want him to step up as he does with his other kids. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's break this down. Miss Smith says she hooked up with the defendant, Mr. Womack, back in high school. He was the big shot athlete, and she was just a regular freshman trying to fit in. Apparently, they started talking on social media, and then got it on a few times. No fancy dates, just straight to the, you know.
I have your baby, and I just accept it. I can't do it.
So you got a text. This is the text. Miss Smith says, you know I had your baby, and you write back, when was this? And then Miss Smith says, 2015. And Mr. Womack says, and why you think it's mine?
Fast forward a few years and Miss Smith is convinced Mr. Womack is the father of her 4-year-old daughter, Adriana. But he's not having it, saying there's no way he's the dad after all this time.
I am 100% sure that Mr. Womack here is my daughter's father. And I want him to step up and be a father to my daughter. And because, you know, my daughter is 4 and, you know, she don't have a father figure. And when she see Mr. Womack, she wants to be with her daddy.
Oh, and get this. Miss Smith says she didn't even tell Mr. Womack about the pregnancy at first. She thought her ex was the dad, so she kept him in the loop instead. But then a DNA test proved her ex wasn't the father, so she finally reached out to Mr. Womack, and he was not happy about it.
Oh, that's how it starts?
Yes, ma'am.
So you don't even go to dinner or nothing? You just go in the DM?
Yes, ma'am.
That's just nasty. So we just go in the DMs. Y'all got it way too easy, Jerome.
Right.
You don't even have to take nobody to dinner anymore.
You know how much money I spent?
And all you needed was the DM.
It was DM.
But here's where it gets even crazier. Mr. Womack is claiming Miss Smith was sleeping around with his family members during that time. He's saying she was the go-to girl for him and his buddies. Whoa! Talk about a messy situation.
All right, take me to that day. What happened?
My mother felt that I wasn't, feeling well. I was supposed to go to church that Sunday. We didn't go to church. Found out I was pregnant November 23rd. I didn't, tell Mr. Womack.
Miss Smith admits she was, messing around with guys to try and fit in when she was the new girl in town, getting bullied and all. Yikes, this poor girl was just trying to find her place, and it sounds like she ended up getting taken advantage of. That's gotta be tough to relive.
You thought Mr. Womack couldn't be the father because he didn't ever really finish the act.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you wrote him off?
Yes, Your Honor.
So how did you come to realize that that is not the case?
Child support had did a DNA test, and the DNA test has said that he wasn't the father.
Hey, at least she's being honest about it now, right? The judge seems to appreciate her coming clean, even if the details are pretty ugly. And you can tell she really wants Adriana to have a dad in her life. She's saying her daughter gets excited just seeing Mr. Womack's Facebook pictures, so you know she's desperate for him to step up.
In her life, when I can be her father, if it's a possibility she's mine. But after talking to my family, after 3 years, and you just now telling me, I can't do it, but we can find out.
Looks like things are about to get tense in the courtroom. Mr. Womack's cousin is stepping up to the podium, and he's not holding back. He's calling Miss Smith the go-to girl for him and his buddies, saying she was sleeping around with all of them. What a bombshell.
Mr. Womack had told me, he said, you could have slept with one of my cousins, and that's why the baby looked like him. I said, well, how does that happen? Oh, don't worry about that. I said, well, which cousin you think my daughter looked like? It's pretty much that he just didn't
Well,
want to
you
claim
should know who it would be. What is this?
I have another cousin here who I tell.
But through all the drama, you can see Miss Smith is really hurting. She's admitting that she just wanted to fit in and feel special, even if it meant giving herself away to all these guys. And the judge, bless her heart, is trying to comfort her. She's saying, I'd rather you just tell the ugly truth than try to make up a pretty lie. Gotta respect that.
Were you that girl, Miss Smith?
I mean, yes, Your Honor. I'm not gonna lie about it. I was, because I figured I'm trying to fit in. So I was, messing around with, guys because I wanted to fit in. Because, everybody would, bully me or whatever. So it was just to the point that I thought just doing that then, but I know I was doing it the wrong way to fit in.
All right, folks, now we're getting to the big moment. The DNA results are in. It's time to reveal the truth.
Mr. Womack, you are the father.
Just feel bad because I should have been there. I'm ready to be her father, Your Honor. She deserves it.
Yes, she does. I believe you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do and be there for this little girl.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Smith, you had to come clean. on some very ugly truths.
Miss Wolf claims her ex-boyfriend, Mr. Shelton, is the father of her twins, Luke and Levi, but Mr. Shelton wasn't having it. He said Miss Wolf was a total party animal who disappeared on him. The judge had to get to the bottom of this messy situation.
Ms. Wolf, you say that your month-long relationship with Mr. Shelton left you with beautiful twins who he is now denying for dubious reasons. You intend to prove Mr. Shelton fathered both boys, Luke and Levi. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Turns out Miss Wolf and Mr. Shelton only dated for a month, but she got pregnant during that time. She said the twins looked just like him, and his friends even told her they resembled him. But Mr. Shelton wasn't convinced. He said Miss Wolf was always disappearing and was super untrustworthy.
We were together for a month and messed around a lot, and she just was never there really. And then she just disappeared one day.
Disappeared? Okay. So take me back. I want to understand the nature of this relationship. How did you even meet?
We met on POF. It was it's an internet dating site. We started talking for a little while, and then we just started hitting it off.
Miss Wolf admitted she did ghost Mr. Shelton after a month of dating. She said she was partying a lot back then and wanted a fresh start for her kids. But then she found out she was pregnant, and that's when she started thinking Mr. Shelton could be the dad. The judge was surprised Miss Wolf just disappeared on him like that. Mr. Shelton seemed pretty hurt that he missed out on the twins' lives.
Yes, and like he said, it was really good. We hit it off. We were going to church together. I thought we were both turning our lives around, doing good. But it wasn't that way. There was trust issues. There was other issues that I didn't want to deal with him, and so I ghosted him, I guess you could say.
So you did?
Yes.
You ghosted him?
Yes.
And how soon after that did you find out you were pregnant?
I didn't find out I was pregnant until May.
Things got even more complicated when Miss Wolf revealed she was living with another guy, Ralph, when she found out she was pregnant. She said Ralph was basically going to be there for the twins, even though she wasn't sure if he was the dad. The judge was a little confused. It sounded like Miss Wolf had a lot of guys in her life around that time.
Well, black people come in all colors, all sizes.
But not blonde hair.
Oh no, black people have blonde hair and blue eyes. That's why I turned around and looked and said, well, let's really see. Because there are plenty of black people that have blonde hair and blue eyes. All right, so Mr. Shelton, how did you find out about the pregnancy?
Mr. Shelton said he only met the twins once when Miss Wolf randomly messaged him and he went to her place. He said he could tell one of the twins looked just like him, but Miss Wolf only suggested one of them might be his. The judge was surprised Mr. Shelton hadn't been more involved, even if he wasn't sure about the paternity.
Obviously, Mr. Shelton wasn't there.
No, he was not.
Who was?
Ralph was there with me, but he's my current boyfriend.
And Ralph
he
is
didn't
Mr.
know,
Duquois.
of course, he couldn't be there, yes.
So, Mr. Duquois participated in the baby's birth?
Yes, he did.
And she also told me that the Ralph could possibly be one of the fathers also.
Oh, she did?
Later on, yes, later on, Your Honor.
Then the judge called in Miss Wolf's current boyfriend, Ralph, to testify. Ralph said he and Miss Wolf had been together since the twins were born, and he joked around that they might be his kids. But Miss Wolf shut that down, saying she never told Ralph he was the dad. The judge could tell this was a messy situation with a lot of mixed signals.
So, Mr. Shelton, I want to ask you, when was the first time you met the twins and you saw them?
After the last time I saw her when she was pregnant, later on, about another 9 months to a year or whatever, she messaged me on Facebook, Your Honor, and she asked how I was doing, and she came over and we were hanging out, and she said one of the boys could be mine.
This case was a roller coaster from the very start, so naturally, it was headed for one hell of a conclusion. That's why when the DNA results came in, everyone was strapped in and expecting a real shocker.
Mr. Duquois, you are not the father. So, Mr. Shelton, now that I've read the results from Mr. Duquois, and he is not the biological father of either twin, Jerome, let's have the envelopes for Mr. Shelton. Mr. Shelton, you are not the father.
Surprising to me, Your Honor.